Welcome. Thank you for tuning in Neptune Knives. I got to keep it a little bit short. The sun's setting. I just want to go over the recurve blade and some of the benefits. I guess when you're talking about woodworking, the main thing to consider is this. When you take the knife to a piece of wood, okay, if it's a Tanto point, for example, and you got like this straight edge and no belly, if you can understand, then, just like if you were to take the tip of something and push it into something, it's much easier. When you have a flat area, you're not taking a thin point, you're taking a bulk to this surface, so of course you're going to get more resistance, and it's going to be harder to, I guess you could say, bite into that wood. And especially now, if you could see this situation right here, you're trying to bite into it, and it's just, thankfully this log is round, but you can understand, like, then for woodworking or for cutting into surfaces with the belly of the knife, not the tip, what you need is something that, if this is like a flat surface now, this represents the log or something, the wood. Okay, there's the wood. Okay, and you have your knife. Taking it. If this was the right here, this blade, and you were to take it to, you see, you're just meeting this flat surface, and it's hard to bite into it. When you have, let's say then, for example, a knife with a belly in it, like this one, you see. Then when you take it to the wood, you can see there is basically like a sort of a tip or a smaller portion that's now penetrating, just as if you were to stab into it. Now, so if you consider this like, okay, these curved blades, you see, it's much easier to get into it, while this Tanto, you're just meeting a lot of resistance. You can hear it even maybe not from that the camera, but right now you can see, like, back to the sage. Okay, you can see it because it's biting into it. Now, the beauty of a recurve blade, and why it's one of my favorite blade shapes, and why I'm doing this video is kind of like an intro, because Mr. Thomas will soon be giving me my recurve Ryu custom folder. Is with the recurve. Okay, let's see. I don't waste too much of my right in the rain. You can see this, like, when you have if you've ever seen karambits, a karambit, if you've ever seen the blade shape is like this, and this is the cutting edge, and these were used primarily by farmers, and a recurve blade would look like this, sort of like this, and it kind of combines those two. Now, if you watch that USM video, you know a lot about, Mr. Dwyer's, pretty darn smart, and other people, outdoor people, bushcrafters, they say that the shorter the blade, the more belly or the curve right here at the front you want, and that just makes sense because you have less to work with. You want that tip to get in there. Okay, so like this one, same thing. Now the thing is with a recurve, if you've ever actually, like, when you cut something, you notice this. What happens is, as you cut towards what you're cutting, of course it provides a resistance, and it kind of, your hand kind of starts to slide like this, whatever you're cutting through, say it was this, right? As you hit it, your hand starts to give a little bit, and it starts to slide off, and basically, like, whatever you're cutting kind of just rolls right off of that edge. It kind of, if you were cutting like this, so you're cutting this way at this thing slides along that edge and just slides right off, and you lose some of that power that you put into it. So what a recurve does, so it's more energy saving, you get more effect out of it, and at the same time, you don't have to, I'll explain in a second. With this, the recurve, that curve on the blade catches it. So as you cut, and you pull it, that recurve suddenly makes this stick kind of get stuck in that curve, kind of like then a karambit would do. It would, if the karambit was here, it would get stuck into that area right there as you slice. And another unique thing about it then is also, because it is curved, you can pull, not necessarily pull towards you, but you can cut in a way where you don't have to push into it. So for example, like if you look at, like, how much can you cut with this curve, you push into it, and as you push, you have to push towards that curve, so you have to kind of push slightly inwards towards what you're cutting, and maybe you get a splinter, and it's kind of like you have to push a little bit, and then you lose that, you can't continue cutting. With the recurve, because the curve, there's an edge that kind of is at this angle, like this, you can kind of cut away from what you're cutting. And then that allows you to keep going more deep into each cut. So this here is a chisel recurve. One side is not ground. And that was because this was a tool steel. This is a high Rockwell hardness, so not advised for chopping. This is that Vim Crew blade I always use, my SNG that Mr. Dwyer did. And so basically for him, the chisel on this is because this tool steel is so hard to grind, it would be too much labor to do both sides. And because of the high Rockwell hardness, it's not going to roll, it's going to probably chip, which it does, it microchips. So you want it to be, sturdier and stronger, so it's a chisel grind. So this is the first bevel, and some people will call this the actual cutting edge or the relief edge. Now normally this knife would come with this bevel going all the way down, basically creating a zero grind, meaning no relief edge. But then Mr. Dwyer put a small relief edge. Regardless, I did this because it helps make it a little bit more of a slicer, helps me find the angle. I'll get into that. This is a series of videos I want to do on grinds and sharpening, what your options are to convex and stuff. But my favorite for outdoor use is the chisel then, because when you push into it, you see that edge cuts and moves the material upwards, and then this goes deeper into it. So as you go, and it's a smart idea for a recurve when you have a small knife, because you don't have much cutting performance or edge to work with. So in something like this, you don't have a lot of options. Like for this example, this knife isn't a saber grind, which is what Spyderco calls it, but from now on I want to use the term Scandi, which is the proper one, and that's just what Wikipedia uses. But the hinder, how it chopped, it was a Scandi grind. It provided that bulk so you could chop and remove material. And while this blade is full flat grind, you don't have that option. And so with this knife, it's nice because it can bite into it. Like you saw, the hinder wouldn't bite into the wood. But this one, very easily. So this is why this is my favorite knife to pack with me when me and Mel go for any kind of hiking or climbing, because of its ability to get that into that wood. When we're climbing and stuff, when we encounter a stinking, a branch that's in our way, it's just problematic and stuff. And I have to quickly, I want to remove it, and I have to do this all one-handed because my left hand is holding on to a rock most likely. This helps get us past that. So you can see how it just kind of digs in. I don't know if you guys can see this on camera or not, but it digs in really well. Let's see. Let's see if I can get this piece of wood to stay. Get closer to the camera. Try to tilt the camera down. There we go. Now the thing about recurve blades, though, important to note, is that they're very difficult to sharpen. Probably one of the most difficult, because flat rods, flat surfaces like whetstones can straighten this edge. You can see mine has lost some of its curve as I've used it, but you see more of it on this side. So you have to kind of make note to get this area, because this area doesn't receive as much cutting. You just have to kind of keep working this to keep that recurve that goes upward and in. So it's definitely one of the most challenging to sharpen by far, but I feel that the performance of a recurve blade is just awesome. Like on that Warren Thomas Ryu, though, that is like a Tanto recurve, more like a karambit, and then with the Tanto point. The blade shape was like this, and that's something you see on more tactical knives like the DRT. So that has a whole way of being sharpened in its own. And you can go see this on my website or watch Ramo's video, but that one had a recurve and then a Tanto point like this on the Warren Thomas Custom, and the handle was over here. But you can see now, let's say for example I go back to the Sage. It's good at getting shaving. This one really is good at getting good slices. You see? Okay. Very good. So I guess you can't tell, but the Sage's chippings are thin, while the Recurve's chippings are thicker. Like per cut, the chisel removes more material as opposed to the Sage, which removes a nice thin slice. It kind of peels it. See? Overall, I would say then, between the two, the flat grind curved belly of the Sage provides for easy slicing and whittling into this wood, much less resistance, while this Recurve, it really bites into it, so you have to kind of push harder, but you remove more with each cut faster. And since this is hard steel, I don't want to chop with it. If I were to baton with this kind of curved blade, at least this has a bulk to where I can. Let me find something to baton with right here. But in terms of batoning now, see the look at that. Now, if I were to take something like a Sage and do the same, get right back in there. Over here. You ready? Both are very good because they have curves. Let's see, now let's try this hollow ground. So you can see what the effect is. Here is the hollow grind. Yeah, just a nice thin slice into it. While the Sage made a really nice cut into it. And then the Strider, the chisel grind. Let's see, one more time the Strider. See, it's a much more of a separating, like watch, let's see for example now, like this curve was digging into, now what if the curve was the other way where it pushed upwards? Okay, let me get this sit here. See, the effect is much more now of a whittling. So I can say this, with chisels, you have two options. You can do thin whittling, or you can do kind of more bulk, biting into something. And it is harder. Overall, I would say it is harder to work and get it in there. But it does offer you some options. See? Oh. See, as I do this way, because this is the edge is on this side, it slides and removes chips. Now if I do it this way, see, if I do it this way now, let's see if we can get this on camera. Okay. It will dig in. So it kind of gives you like two options of what you can do. So I really like the chisel. Not only is it stronger, quicker to sharpen because of only one side, and you don't have to worry about messing up your edge or shifting your edge to one side or the other. You have this, as you saw, with the actual edge that has the relief and the bevels. You'll remove the chips off. On the other side, it'll bite in. And then you maintain that strong bulk and tip. While these hollow grinds will only be able to whittle or get you nice thin slices into the wood. And then these flat grounds will provide a nice whittling ability. But that's about really their main thing. So I hope this was a little helpful on the recurve blade and what some of its ideas are I can do. As you can see here, like I can work away from the wood. You see? I can cut with my hand going out that way. And then not have to worry about, hurting myself. You see? All the shavings going out this direction. While on the sage, that's not as much of an option, you see, because it removes, every time I cut, I can't really see, it has to still be pushing along that curve. So I have to still push inward like this. You can see this, that is what gives me the best results. Going like this is not really as much of an option. So, thank you, and until next time, thank you for watching. I hope this was informational. And our last little thing to test, here's my strider. So, you see here, right in the dirt, right? Locked up. Get right in the dirt, like that. See. Locked up. One more time. Here. Let me scoop it in there, huh? See? Good stuff, right? So, best thing to say is if you were moving around, got tumbled in some dirt or something, and then you would use your knife. See, look at that. Just pushes it out of the way. Very nice. Okay, thank you. This is the recurve. There's Charlene. Get back, back, back. Sit. Sit. Speak. Good girl.